Are y'all ready to learn about debate?
No.
So we have a PowerPoint, and you do have an exit ticket today. So make sure that when we're done with all of these like Interp events, when we're explaining them, that you're going back and you're kind of filling that form out for me. Okay? That does count as a grade, so make sure that you do it. So let's go ahead and get started with our lovely little PowerPoint. Today, all we're going to be talking about today is events that we will enter into. So I want y'all to pay as much attention as possible because I want you to kind of feel out and see what events would actually interest you as far as competing in. Because since y'all are in a debate class, I do expect y'all all to compete. And I might even make it a grade for y'all later. Okay? So let's go ahead and talk about the very first things, which is the types of organizations that we might compete in. So there's different types. You have UIL. Everybody knows of UIL, right? Okay? So UIL is the most basic one. That is one that we might compete in, or that we're actually going to compete a lot in. And these are the meets that we go to for like districts, regionals, and state. TFA is a Texas Forensic League. We might also do stuff with them as well. We don't typically do a lot of TFA tournaments because since we're a new program, I really want us to get super used to UIL. But TFA does offer a lot more events that we can do. UIL is pretty restricted. And then you have the NFL. I believe they've actually renamed this to NSDA, but it's the National Forensic League or the National Speech and Debate Association. I need to change this. I keep meaning to change it, and I never do. It's very, very similar to TFA, but again, there's just a couple other of events that you can do in there. So UIL is mainly LD, prose, poetry, persuasive speaking, and informative speaking. And then they have Congress as well for UIL. TFA, they have all of those things, plus duo, DI, HI, original oratory, impromptu speaking. And then National Forensic League is the same way. Okay. We will find out what all of these mean in a second. All right. So if I've already lost you because you have no idea what I'm talking about, it's okay. You can go look back at this page and see what I'm talking about when you figure out what LD is and what OO is and all that good stuff. So let's talk about Interp events. I absolutely love Interp events because I have a lot of theater background. So if any of you are involved in theater or you like to act, Interp events is where you're really going to find your niche, because if you like to do this, this is really all Interp events are, is your ability to interpret pieces of work and act them out in your own way. Okay? So it's really fun. It really builds your presentation skills. It will help you develop a good presence in front of people. And then it's going to help you be a more involved and interesting speaker. If you've ever seen like people speak and they have like that monotone type voice, if you can really do really well at Interp, it's actually going to help your speaking skills out a lot more as well, because you're going to be a lot more animated. Because again, you're acting. And when you act, you're going to be really over dramatic about all of your movements, how you're delivering your words, and everything. So it's actually going to help you become a better speaker. I know being involved in theater helped me become a better speaker. Number one, because it was easy for me to memorize things, but it was also because I learned how to actually perform in front of people. It does expand your horizons. So if you're just a plain speaker, but you're wanting to kind of figure out how to be even better, this can help you expand your horizons and open up a lot more opportunities for you in the future. You can do a piece about any topic that interests you. The only thing that you're confined to is it has to be a published piece of work. So if you have a favorite play, you can perform that play. If you have a favorite book, you can perform that book. If you have favorite poetry, you can perform all that poetry. Okay? So the sky's the limit when it comes to being an interpreter. or an interper. So here's who's good at being interpers. If you are a good storyteller, you will be great at interp events, because essentially that is what you're doing, is you're telling a story. If you're somebody who enjoys exploring different avenues of life, so if you're that person that likes to take on different roles and figure out how different people think, well, if you're being an actor on stage, what are you going to do when you're trying to portray a character? You're going to be that character. So that helps you explore different avenues of life, because now you're having to look at life through that character's eyes. And then somebody who knows practice makes perfect is really good at being an interpreter, because just like you would with a play, you're going to have to rehearse a lot in order for it to become better and better each time. And again, those who are interested in theater are going to be great at interp as well. So here are a few events. Geez, why did I pick blue? Y'all can barely see that, can't you? I'll change that color later. So prose and poetry is one interp event, or two different interp events. So it's called prose and poetry reading, but you don't really read. All right. Is it going to bug y'all if I take time to change the color of this? Because I can't see it. Okay. Because I can't see it very well.
Why did you pick that shape?
Well, it wasn't originally a black background.
Yeah.
What do we want to do?
I'm blind either way.
Yellow.
On my computer.
I'm going to have to edit this out of my video. Okay. I believe that's all of it. Jeez, yes. Come on, Coach, wait. There's probably a couple other ones that are like that too. Okay, so prose and poetry reading, it says that you're going to be able to read it. So it's a non-memorized, in quotation marks, please pay attention to that. It is a non-memorized event in which competitors choose a published piece of work that is either prose or poetry. So prose meaning it's anything but poetry, okay? So it's a piece of literature, like a novel, a book, a play. Poetry is poetry. Does that make sense? So if you're really into poetry, you might be really good at the poetry event. If you're just really good at just telling stories and acting like you're reading from a page, then you might want to choose prose, okay? But it's non-memorized, meaning you are going to literally have this nice little mini binder in front of you, and you're going to have what you're going to say in this binder, okay? And the reason why I say it's non-memorized in quotation marks is because you want it to look like you're reading it. But again, the more you practice it, what's going to start happening? You're going to memorize it, right? So you want to look like you're reading it by saying whatever story that you're talking about, and then occasionally looking down and acting like you're reading. So that's what I mean by non-memorized. You really will memorize it, but you're going to make it look like you're reading it. This is a 7-minute performance. Each round of competitions, the competitors will read their pieces with a brief introduction. So what a lot of people do is they go right into their piece, and then in the middle of their piece, they'll have like an introduction on what it's about and what the theme is, and they'll close their book, and then they'll take on their character of themselves. And then once they're done, they'll reopen up the book and get back into whatever character position that they were supposed to be in. Okay? Fun stuff. It's really fun. I love it. After everybody's finished reading, the judges rank the speakers in order of performance. So if the 4 of y'all were doing this performance, I would rank you, okay, I think you're going to be first, you're second, you're third, you're fourth. And you earn speaker points from your placements. Prose reading is the same, but now you're just, so prose reading is you just telling a story, okay? Real life stories tend to work best because you do want to use first narration pieces. I have seen a lot of people who try to take on different characters, And if they're good at it, it works really, really well. But if they don't distinguish like body language between each character, it's not going to work very well. And what I mean by that is you have to change the way that your body looks when you're portraying that certain character. Does that make sense? You have to have a character walk and a character stance. Okay. The goal is to make your audience get wrapped up in the story and to paint a picture with your words and movement, to have the best presentation and to be the best presenter. Okay. Have any of y'all ever been involved in theater? Cool. Did y'all ever go to like one act play?
I have.
Jesus,
Cool.
okay.
So, did y'all ever do one act play in middle school? Yes.
I don't remember.
Okay, so it's basically kind of like the same concept. You want to be the best play or the best one. You want to have the best presentation and the best acting abilities. Okay? So here's an example. This is called Sam the Cat, performed by Ben Edwards. He was actually the 2013 state champion for prose reading. So we're going to watch, and so y'all can kind of see how prose actually works.
There are 6 finalists
I gotta fast forward, sorry.
from University High School. Champion in prose reading, Ben Nelson. Ben Edwards.
My girlfriend Louise and I went to a party, mostly advertising people I knew from work. It began late and followed a long day where all I wanted was a simple meal in front of the television. But I knew I'd hate myself if I missed it. Things happened at parties which your friends talk about for months, sometimes years. You can't miss them. You can't just get in on a great joke after the fact. The party was in a refurbished warehouse. There was a band in one corner and a cash bar. I was mad at myself for going and pissed that I brought Louise because she didn't know anyone. So we started bumming cigarettes off people. And if they said yes, we'd ask for 4. And then she waved to this chick who was heading over to the bar. I couldn't see because of how dark it was, but she stood over 6 feet tall with long jet black hair. She had on blue jeans and a t-shirt, those sharp hip bones you can feel right underneath the bikini. I wanted to have a chat with her, so when Louise went to the bathroom, I hustled on over to the bar, wangled up to this chick, whipped out my best head fake and grin, and it was a man. Poet Audre Lorde developed the continuum of sexuality, which states that the vast majority of people lie somewhere between fully heterosexual and completely homosexual. Although society generally pressures us to identify as either straight or gay, life's courses sometimes lead us down unexpected paths, and our reactions to these new and unfamiliar stimuli often shock us most of all. Sam the Cat by Matthew Clement. He had some high cheekbones. Maybe he could be one of those handsome, pretty male models. I don't know. I'm not an expert on how guys are supposed to look. Up close, though, he did need a shave. When Louise came back, I told her. Not that I went running over there, but that when I saw him out of the corner of my eye, he looked like a chick. I'm such a turkey sometimes. I don't know why the hell girls go out with me. I mean, I lie, I cheat, I can never remember the name of her best friend, and I hate to dance. I will, I do often, but I attract a crowd of people who can't understand how bad I am. It's like the worse I act, the more people want to be around me. I went home and shut my eyes and tried to sleep. Except there was this guy, the guy who looked like a chick, walking around the party in my mind, and I saw how his pants stuck out a little. Somebody stop me. I was horny. I was so horny I couldn't believe it. I just kept thinking about his jeans, and see, in my mind, he was sort of a woman, but what do I want to say here? I made myself make love to Louise. I didn't want to, and she was very picture of unconscious, but I had to. I'm a man. Any man would have done the same. Now what? What? Was I all of a sudden gay? What? I went to sleep one night and woke up a homo. A few days later, we were having drinks at Sid's, and the guy came in, the blonde on his arm. Luis, of course, waved hello and offered him a seat. His name was John Drake. He was a house painter. He ran his own company, and he played in a band. He seemed like a pretty cool guy, very normal acting with those light, pale blue eyes. Later, we were lying in Luis's bed getting reacquainted when I wondered whether anything in my house needed painting. And I saw his pants again in my mind. He was wearing different ones that night, khakis. And you could tell he was very slim and in good shape. There I am, thinking about a man queasy with the weirdness of it. It felt like I was 12 again, caught in my mom's closet. I thought the cops were going to come in and bust me. Because they should have. John had given me his card, so on Sunday I left a message on his machine that I wanted to talk to him about a commercial he had in mind, the country western team. I said we needed a band, and I'd call him that night, and hung up fast. That night, I was getting more and more worried about making this call, but I finally did, and John answered. Hey, John, it's me, Sam Beerton. I left that message on your machine. Oh, yeah, sure. Well, what's the word? Oh, well, as I mentioned, our creative director wants to use a Western music on this Juan's Tacos frozen food ad. Tacos? So should I write a song about tacos? No, don't do that. That was your girlfriend I met the other night, right? Oh yeah, women, it's a crazy thing. I could write a book on everything I know about women. I should have you come over tonight and I give you my full explanation. What? I should write that book and give my full explanation. We said a couple more things and then I hung up. After work the next day, I drove to the mall. Bought some navy pants made of thin material. And then I got hair gel and a cream that's supposed to tone your skin. I called John that night to follow up. Your band is great. Thanks. So your office got that demo? The way you sang on it was terrific. You could sell anything with that voice. Can I ask you a question? Shoot. Would you come over tonight so I can make you dinner? This isn't about the tacos, is it? I can make tacos. Are you gay? What? No, of course not. Forget it. Forget what? Lately, it seems I can't get close to anyone without offending her or him. I tried to call Louise, but she takes the phone and she puts it near the blender I gave her last year. Set on crush, it sounds like. Of course, Louise still turns me on, but what do? Go over there half gay and start kissing her? What am I saying? This would all be easier if I were married and had kids. But who would I marry? I'll tell you who. Myself, with my cat, Skippy, as the mascot. We could sail around the world together. I'd give him a little yellow rain suit, man the missing master for a little while. Got me a halyard. I would love the seagoing life. Because maybe out there, I come across something, anything I could understand.
All right, So that is how a prose piece would typically
There are
work.
6 finalists.
Go away. That is how a prose piece works. Do y'all notice how he it seems like he's memorized, but he would like, how do I get out of full screen? Gosh darn it.
Seems like it's not right. Actually, so it's not actually
Like a skate.
It's okay. But y'all see how he like, it looks like he memorized it, but he would like glance down every now and then at his book. Another thing that I forgot to mention is when you do prose or poetry, you don't move except for the top half of your body. So y'all know how I made y'all do that nice little speech triangle for speeches? For prose and poetry, you gotta stay in the same spot the whole entire time. Okay? Because you don't want to take away from the words. Yeah. So you don't want to take away from the words, so you don't like do all of that.
So like I can't have an audience, or like I just like.
You perform in the one spot. If you shift over a little bit, that's fine. But essentially, you don't want to walk around the stage. Okay? So let's talk about poetry. Poetry is the same exact thing as prose, only now you're doing poetry. Sounds easy enough, right? Okay. Normally, so although you're performing a piece of poetry instead of a novel, you still want to tell a story through the words, just a little bit more artistically. So here's the fun part with poetry reading. Do y'all know how you get in like that iambic pentameter and like you start like saying things with a beat when you read poetry? You don't want to do that when you're reading poetry, right? You want to make sure that you're paying attention to the grammar in the poetry and you're not taking those pauses in between every single line that ends. You're taking pauses when there's a comma or when there's a period after that line, okay? And you'll see what I'm talking about when we watch the poetry reading for this other gentleman. So what you'll do is you'll cut a piece from published poetry and tell a story that you fit into the allotted time. This piece is usually centered around a theme, and it can be one really, really long poem, or it can be many poems stacked up or woven together. So the gentleman that we're going to be watching, he's actually taking 2 different poems and weaving them together as one. So that's one really great thing about poetry reading. You can just pull from a whole bunch of different places. So again, you want to make sure that each of your poems, if you're using multiple ones, all fit within that same theme. So you have to make sure that happens. Otherwise, it's not going to make sense because you still like overall want to tell a story with it. So here's a poetry example. This is Fat Guy Poetry, performed by Eric Sequeira. I can't ever say his name. He was the 2010 state champion, and I absolutely love watching him because he's funny.
In 6th place, from
Okay, I think we're good.
and ladies and gentlemen, your 2010 state champion in poetry reading from Oakland, Eric Cicada.
I love cake. I can't be any clearer than that. I love cake. I could eat every cake in New York City. I can't even go into bakeries anymore. Because I'll eat all the cake. I'll say, where's the cake? I love cake. Get me some cake. And they'll say, we know how much you love cake. We know that you rarely have enough money to buy our cake, so you can't come in here because you can't afford the cake. But you love the cake. So get out of here. You cannot have any of the cake. You don't have the money to buy any of our cake. I want cake. I want your cake. Give me all of your cake. I love cake. Life for an overweight man can be difficult. However, as these poets show us, if we just shift our perspectives and enjoy the little things about being big, we can appreciate ourselves, no matter what our shape. Cake by Todd Colby, and This Is Not Glandular by Dan O'Neill. I don't use excuses. I never liked them. The people who say they were born this way. Husky. Stocky. Big boned. Let me start by putting your minds at ease. This is not glandular. So I am not a fat man. I am a fat man. Any fewer syllables is an injustice to my girth. And I am damn proud of it. I am proud of this body. I chose to be this size. Chose a body as booming as my voice, with the softness to counter my sharp-tongued words. Chose puffy cheeks so my grandma would always have something to pinch. Chose hands that looked like hot dogs glued to a baseball. Because that's really funny to picture. I chose to be a mountain of a man just in case any ladies were feeling adventurous and wanted to hike to the summit. Trust me, this is not glandular. I chose this body because of the women. Because ladies love the funny fat guy. Because any girl who won't take me if I'm fat is not anyone I'd want if I were thin. Because I am 230 pounds of cuddling, bearing down on you like a force of nature. There is no escape from my snuggling. Because I am a teddy bear whose heart is on E and desperately awaits the next woman to refuel him. I chose this body because of the food. Because there are 6 meals in a day. Breakfast, brunch, lunch, siesta, dinner, and the Taco Bell drive-thru. And they are all the most important meal of the day. Because just like lonely, horny, and angry, we all get hungry. Because my mom told me that some people show love by cooking. So I got cookies instead of hugs, meatloaf in lieu of kisses, and fried spaghetti sandwiches replace bedtime stories. As I clean my plate every time, because it was all I could do to say, I love you too. I mean, I never knew my dad. And Rick was never a hands-on stepfather, unless you would count the less than occasional slap upside the head. So, food gave me surrogate fathers. Colonel Sanders and Chef Boyardee became my models for manhood, which explains my affinity for weird hats. I chose this body because of 7th grade PE. Because if just one fat guy is confident when changing clothes, it makes others more confident. Because dodgeball is a crappy sport, so who cares if I get knocked out first? Because running the mile is torture. But so are the jokes if the fat guy can't finish it. I chose this body because other people not liking my body is not a good enough reason for me to change it. So to the bullies, the lunch ladies, to the women who never gave me a chance, and the football coaches who barraged me with insults, to the jerks and the jocks, and the doctor who joked when I stepped on his scale, to Rick and the Colonel, and anyone who's ever used F-A-T as an insult, you can all do what I've spent the past 2 decades of my life doing. You can eat it. Because I love pies. I love hamburgers and French fries and lobster and deep fried Twinkies. I love me some rice-a-roni and Salisbury steak, microwave burritos, Cooler Ranch Doritos, and ice cream. The kind that you push that had Flintstone on it. I love cake. I love everything about who I am and the life I get to live. No, this is not glandular. It's just fact. And for the first time in my life, I'm proud of that.
All right. So, example of poetry. Did you ever like hear him like take a beat like you normally do when you like read poetry aloud? Did he like read it like it was a song?
Nope.
No, he read it like it was an actual story being told, which is what you want to do when you are performing poetry. Did you see how he kind of intertwined both of those different poems? Yeah. So he started with one and then went on with his second one and then added in the rest of the first one at the end. Very, very great. Very likable as well. Okay. I always like showing him too because he's very creative in the way that he describes things and the way that he presents things. So like he's, saying out fact. Okay. These are things that you can do when you are doing poetry or prose. You have to make it to where your audience is super enthralled in it. Okay. Any questions about those 2 events? Cool. So the next one we have is dramatic interpretation. Piper, this is for you. So dramatic interpretation. Yeah, because the bell's going to ring. So dramatic interpretation is where you are just telling a story and it's dramatic in nature. So just a sad one or one that's very like not funny in any kind of way. So something that you need for this category to be able to do is display emotion and sincerity. You have to have that. If you can't display emotion or sincerity, probably not going to be the event for you. So it's just like prose and poetry where you pick from a published piece of work and you have to confine it into 10 minutes. And then this one you do have to memorize. So this one is basically a really long monologue. So you're up there speaking for 10 minutes. Now, in dramatic interpretation and humorous interpretation, you can play multiple characters. That is fine. Okay? You're actually probably going to have to play multiple characters because there's no other way around it. What do you need to make sure that you're doing with your body when you are playing multiple characters? You stand differently. You shift your body in a different way that reflects how that character holds themselves up. Okay? These are 10 minutes long. Prose and poetry is normally 7 minutes long. Dramatic interpretation and humorous interpretation is going to be 10 minutes long. Your goal is to make everybody want to cry or at least empathize with you. That is basically the goal of dramatic interpretation. You do have to have the piece completely memorized. You have to be able to use lots of space around you. So on this one, instead of staying put in that one spot, you can actually move around now. You have to be able to change your levels and your voices. And again, you have to be able to promote that emotion or that sincerity and who the characters are, their voices and movement and all that good stuff. Humorous interpretation is the same exact way. We only have 5 minutes in class, so we're going to continue off with DI tomorrow. Now, before you fill out that exit ticket, this exit ticket was meant for all the Interp events, which we did not get through yet. So hold off on completing that exit ticket until we finish the Interp events. And tomorrow I'll give you like 5 minutes to fill it out, and then we'll move on to the speaking events. Sounds good? All right, fantastic. Y'all go ahead, pack up, get your phones. Please remain seated in your desks until the bell rings.